So now I'm going to introduce our speaker for tonight. We are joined by Melis Cobandag. Melis is currently studying in her final year at BSMS. She served as the president of BSMS PsychSoc for 2 years, during which she organised a national psychiatry conference with a child and adolescent theme. Melis is also one of our BSMS teaching mentors, which means she supports the work of the outreach team by designing and delivering sessions in schools and on campus, and for our Bright Med and Bright Ideas programmes. Tonight, Melis is going to be sharing her experience of undertaking research whilst at medical school, including the Year 4 Individual Research Project. Known as the IRP, this is a year-long project which all Year 4 students undertake at BSMS, supervised by a university or hospital team. Students' IRPs can also result in opportunities to publish and present their research nationally and internationally. So, Melis, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I can't wait to hear all about your research and what you've been up to, and I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, Agatha. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Melis. Some of you might have met me before because, like Agatha said, I do work for Bright Med and Bright Ideas. But yeah, today I'm going to be talking about how I've been exploring psychiatry and neuroscience at medical school. Um, so yeah, I hope some of you find this interesting and I'll answer any questions at the end. And like Agatha said, I'm in my final year, so I'm in my fifth year. And I came straight from sixth form, so I'm currently 22 years old. So I just thought I would tell you guys where my interests kind of began. So I studied A-level biology, chemistry, and English literature at Blackpool Sixth Form College, which is actually quite far away from Brighton. It's all the way in the north. Um, and whilst I was in sixth form, it was COVID, and there wasn't much to do socially, I guess. But I quite enjoyed my A levels, and I also really enjoyed doing my EPQ, which I did on. It was titled "How Modifications to the Epigenome Following Experiences of Childhood Adversity Impacts Future Mental Health and Behavior." So during that, I just really realized that I enjoyed, I guess, researching, and particularly like the topic of mental health was very interesting to me. Um, so yeah, I just thought I'd give you like a bit of a background of where it kind of started. So yeah, I'm going to talk about how I've been getting involved with research whilst I've been at medical school. I think before I came to medical school, like I said, I knew I was interested, but I didn't actually expect to get involved with it whilst at medical school, like at a student level. I thought it would be something that you can only do when you're like, I don't know, a professor or something. But actually, there are so many opportunities that I want to talk to you guys about, um, so that you guys are aware and, if you ever want to do something like that, hopefully you'll have more of an idea. So it started with doing this role called the Junior Research Associate. So at the University of Sussex, during the summer holidays, they run this scheme called the Junior Research Associate Scheme. And essentially what that is you have about 8 weeks to undertake a research project of your choice. And by after the end of the 8 weeks, you're expected to kind of produce a research poster, and then present that at the internal conference that they run for students who did the JRA. So yeah, this is something that I did in my second year of university. So um, I applied whilst I was in year two of medical school, and then I did this in that summer afterwards. So you do have to apply, but it is a job. And the reason why this was like a really good opportunity is the fact that you get paid to do it as well. And that was something that was actually very important to me because I am someone who kind of needed to work or needs to work during the summer holidays, to make sure that I like had enough money for my final year actually, which I think is changing for you guys. I think the student loan will cover all 5 years for you guys. But for me, it doesn't. So I knew I needed to have a paid job. And then a lot of people usually do research for free, which is something I realized at medical school is people usually just kind of find any opportunity and they'll do it without it being like a paid role. But at Uni of Sussex, and I'm sure there are other things in other universities that you guys can look into, there are like actually paid opportunities to do something that's also really interesting and really valuable, So I just kind of wanted to emphasize that is that there are ways that doing research can be quite accessible as well. So this was quite self-directed. It was very flexible. But what I did to actually get this job was I had to email my lecturers and be quite proactive about it. So I really encourage you guys to be quite proactive in whatever degree you do. If you have anything that you're interested, don't be afraid to kind of go and explore that. So I emailed some of my lecturers who I thought gave particularly interesting lectures, and then I met with some of them on like a Zoom call, and they kind of told me about some opportunities that they might have if I were to want to apply for the JRA with them as my supervisor, because you need to have a supervisor when you're at this level who will kind of guide you through the process and mentor you, which is really, really like valuable teaching that you'll get as well. So, one of my lecturers, who I thought gave really interesting lectures, she had a project in mind, and I decided to go with that. And there were some other projects that other people suggested that I just wasn't truly interested in, so I decided not to go with those. And then, yeah, we wrote up my application, and then we wrote the proposal for the project, which is basically you have to describe what you're going to do, why you want to do it, and what you're hoping to achieve by doing that. And this is really important. And although this is like a low scale project, when you start doing things in like a larger scale, you have to write these proposals to get big pots of funding so you can actually afford to do like really important research. So all of this is just a really great experience, really. Like at a lower scale, you just get to experience all of the processes that you need to actually do research. Um, so that was a really great experience for me. So what did I actually do? So enough of how I actually got the job. But once I got the job, yeah, I was able to do it over the summer. And I also want to highlight that I think my summer holiday was like 12 weeks or something like that. So I still had like an entire month to not work as well. Just want to highlight that. So what I actually did was I had to learn a new skill, which I was quite afraid to do. I had to analyze fMRI images. So fMRI is basically, if you can see on the screen, like the brain imaging that I'm showing with the heat map of the areas of the brain that are kind of lighting up. So my job was to do some coding on this software called MATLAB, which you can see on the slide, which I have no experience with coding. I didn't even do like A-level maths. Like I had genuinely zero experience in this. Um, but I just want to highlight that you need to have like the confidence and like don't be put off by this and you can learn new skills. That's kind of, you know, that's the point. So I very nearly didn't apply for the job because I was too afraid of doing this. But it was actually one of my friends who was just like, just apply because she was also applying. Like, stop thinking about it. Like, but the way that I was able to kind of not be as anxious was I spoke to my supervisor and I was like, if I can't figure out how to do the coding, can we change the project? And she said, yeah, that's completely fine. Like, we can make it something that we can do it without the coding. We can just do a review of the literature instead. So I was like, okay, as long as there's the safety net. But really, like, you should just take risks. So even if I wasn't able to do it, it's fine. Okay. But what was really nice was I actually managed to figure out how to use this software. And over those 8 weeks, I managed to analyze all these images and do the statistics to discover if there was like any findings. So the patients that I was analyzing was there were two different groups of patients. Um, One group was patients who had schizophrenia, who schizophrenia, firstly, if you're not familiar, is a mental health problem where people suffer from things like hallucinations, delusions, thought problems, um, and many more things. But some people who have schizophrenia have auditory hallucinations specifically, where they hear voices. And some other people who have schizophrenia don't actually experience auditory hallucinations. So I analyzed two groups of patients, one group of patients with schizophrenia who had auditory hallucinations, and one group of patients with schizophrenia who did not have auditory hallucinations. And what I wanted to do was see if when we put them in the MRI scanner, can we see if their brains respond differently when they're hearing external voices? So as if someone's speaking to them. Um, So that was the kind of the point of why I analyzed those. And then you have to do statistics to see if there was a statistical real difference between the groups. Um, so yeah, I completed that project and then I was able to present it at the conference that I mentioned earlier. And if anyone's interested in what I found that auditory hallucinations may be competing with external auditory stimuli, so like I said, other people's speech, for the neural processing, which actually resulted in decreased activation elicited by the tasks stimuli compared to patients who did not experience auditory hallucinations. So this is a very kind of neuroscience-y based project, which we don't get to explore like this in-depth neuroscience at medical school necessarily. So this was really nice to kind of see, try and discover more of the underpinnings of some of the diseases that we're learning about. Because at medical school, we do learn like some of the underpinnings of diseases, but then there's a massive shift of focus onto like the treatment and the management and diagnosis, which is obviously all great and really interesting as well. But this was really nice to kind of try and understand this disease more, which is actually still very much not understood. Compared to a lot of other, I guess, physical health problems, we still don't really understand schizophrenia. So even finding small things like this will hopefully help create that bigger picture of what is the difference between these people's brains versus ours? Is there even a difference? Is there a difference between different patients within that same illness, if that makes sense? So yeah, that was that. And then after I did the JRA that summer, um, I entered my third year of medical school and I, yeah, I just did my third year. And then as I was coming towards the end of my third year, I was like, as I've mentioned, I was like, I knew I was going to do some work in the summer. So I thought, let me see if I can try and do some research again because I really, really enjoyed it and learned so much. Um, so I thought, let me try and see if there's anything that I can do. So I reached out to my supervisor who supervised me for the JRA and I said, do you have anything that I can help you with? Because it's also, like I said, it's really important to build like relationships as well when no matter what degree you do. If you're interested in something and you want to get involved with something, make relationships with people. It's very important and you can learn a lot from your seniors and yeah, don't be put off by doing that as well. So I emailed her and said, do you have anything that I can do? And she said, I actually don't have anything that you can do, but my friend who works at BSMS, I think she's looking for someone to help with like her projects. So she kind of mentioned my name to this lady, Dr. Kadar, in the photo. And then she reached out to me asking if I wanted to help with her project. Um, and I said, yeah, I can do after my exams. So she said, okay, if I still need you after my exams, I'll tell you. Because she contacted me like a month before I had time to do it. Anyway, so I contacted her after my exams and she was like, yeah, I still do need help with this project. So I was like, okay, that's great. So then I got the job in the Cognitive Epidemiology, Dementia and Aging Research Lab at BSMS. So if you want to read a little bit about it, it's on the BSMS website. This lab is huge. They do lots of different things. I was primarily helping with one project, which I'll talk about in a second. Um, but it's really, again, it really feeds into my interest of like neuroscience and yeah, that type of thing. So it was really good to do that. So what I did for that job, again, that was like during the summer, I was like you get guided by your supervisors, but they tell you how to do things correctly, but not necessarily how to learn the skill. And that's you have to be quite proactive and do that yourself. So like I learned the fMRI analysis stuff mostly through YouTube videos and reading like this person's blog who'd explained how to do the coding. And then what the supervisor really does is guide you through the process of doing research. So again here, this was actually completely different to that previous project. So absolutely no numbers involved in this. This was qualitative research. So if you guys aren't familiar, that just means it's not, there's no like numerical statistics or anything like that. It's more about getting insights into what people might think and feel. And that's the type of research it is, rather than the other one, which was quite quantitative, which meant that I was looking at real like numbers in terms of there's a statistical difference between two different groups. So what this project involved was so there was a big research team working on this project. So they had been carrying out interviews across like the southeast region of the UK in lots of different care homes and nursing homes, and they were interviewing a lot of residents who had like mild cognitive impairments and asking them about their experiences of living in the care homes at that time that they were doing the interviews, which was in it was after COVID, and then also asking them about how they experienced their life in the care homes during the COVID-19 pandemic. And some care homes were also still having outbreaks. Um, and they just wanted to see like how these people were experiencing those situations and what we can do to kind of safeguard their well-being if a respiratory outbreak was going to happen again, and what we can do even now when there's no respiratory outbreaks to improve their quality of life whilst living in these care homes. So these interviews were already done, and I came into the project once the interviews were already collected. And my job was to read through all of these interviews and analyze them. So again, I had never done this, but I went on YouTube. I learned how to do thematic analysis, which is what my supervisor told me we should do. Um, so yeah, I went and learned how to do that. And then this is also what I'm going to kind of point out. I feel like when I was doing my A levels, um, I was really tried like a lot of my sixth form tried to persuade me to do maths because they were like, oh, you want to either go in at that time I wanted to either do like medicine or pharmacy or something. They were like, well, will maths not help you more than English? And I said, no. And I decided to do English because I said, well, I'm going to lose absolutely all skills of essay writing if I don't do English because that's not a strong point for me and I wanted to make sure I keep that. Whereas if I don't do something like maths, I feel like I'm already doing the biology and chemistry and it's something that comes a little bit more naturally to me. So I thought, no, I need to keep that skill because I feel like that's also really important for me. So just think about when you're doing your A levels and stuff. I don't know what stage you guys are at. Just think about what will really benefit you. Like what areas are you good at, firstly? It's good to do things you're good at, but also what are other areas that you feel like are good skills to have that you want to have? So for me, that was English. I think that was a skill I need to keep on top of because I think it's easy for me to kind of get bad at that. And this project really, really like I use a lot of my skills from my English literature A level. This was basically analyzing text and finding themes and then writing an essay on it. Like that was basically this is what this research was. So yeah, this misconception of research being like very mathematical in the lab is not necessarily true. Um, so that's what I did for this project, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I think it was very helpful to have those skills for me, to kind of pick out those themes across. I read, I think, like 45 interviews or something like that, um, and trying to pick like the key points from those things. It was very interesting, but I think, yeah, it still requires a level of skill. And then, um, I, yeah, once I completed that project, I sent my abstract to the British Society of Gerontology, who was holding a conference. Um, and I was able to present this work at the conference. So this is me and one of my really good friends who was also working in the same lab as me with the cognitive epidemiology stuff. And she also did a different project. And I actually met this girl when we were both doing the JRA. So yeah, she went to the University of Sussex, um, and we've been friends ever since, honestly. So I think it's also a very sociable thing to get involved in research. I just wanted to highlight that as well. You meet lots of different people. You meet peers. You meet people who are like more senior than you that can help you. Um, but this was just a really fun day that we could both go together and present our work. So yeah, and if anyone's interested in what I found, so I found that there is a need for collaboration between like the policymakers and care home managers and urban planners because a lot of the people in the care homes were expressing how unusable the space was because they either had like wheelchairs or they couldn't move properly or there was no tents in the garden and their skin burned and they just felt like they couldn't use all of the space available to them where they lived. A lot of these things could be fixed quite easily sometimes. So that was interesting to hear from the residents. Um, and we need to take a resident-centered and resident-centered care environments are central to reduce isolation for people in care homes and support their well-being. And ensuring that they have outdoor access and autonomy, even during times of respiratory outbreaks, is really important because oftentimes those things were kind of lost. And really, like for instance, outdoor access should increase during a respiratory outbreak, but for some reason, in some instances, it was everything was kind of decreasing for these people in the care homes. And hopefully, we can use these findings to inform future health crises and non-crisis care strategies, with an emphasis on accessibility to space and structured recreational activities for people in care homes. So that was really interesting, and that was the first conference I presented this at. And then I also presented at the BSMS 2025 Dementia Research Conference. So this was actually my first oral presentation at a conference. And I want to emphasize that I have not always enjoyed public speaking. It might seem like I come across maybe, I don't know, maybe confident when I'm talking right now, but I when I tell you I was very, very shy until like coming to medical school, I mean it. Like every single parents' evening, it was like Melis doesn't ever put her hand up in class. She doesn't speak. Like it would be great to hear from her more. I just would not. I was very shy. So this is a skill I've developed throughout medical school. So I also really want to highlight that again, that if you want to develop something, you are able to, as long as you want to do it and you like put the work in for it and get over those fears. And I think my job at Brightmed also really helped with that because I've really enjoyed teaching and that type of thing. So I can focus on enjoying the teaching rather than how much I guess I might not enjoy like the public speaking side of things. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to give you some insight on that. Um, and yeah, it was really nice to present it to other researchers, other people in the field across the world who had kind of joined this conference. That was very surreal for me, very interesting experience as well. And then that moves on to my fourth year independent research project, which Agatha was mentioning at the start. Um, so this is part of the curriculum here at BSMS. So it means that every single person will have to do this in order to pass the course. So the difference is if you are really interested in research, BSMS gave us the option to organize our own project. But if you're not, or if you just, I'm not sure what to do, then they will allocate you a project as well. So there's like two routes you can take with this IRP, which makes it really, really like it's probably one of the most unique components of the whole curriculum because usually in medical school you don't get to pick like modules necessarily. You have to do what you have to do. But with this one, it's like you get to explore something that you're interested in, which I think is really great. Um, so I, again, I reached out to my initial supervisor from the JRA because she's so lovely to work with, and I really, really have enjoyed working with her. And I asked her if she'd want to do a project with me for the IRP, and she said yes. And then we discussed what we could do. And I wanted to go back to the schizophrenia stuff because I thought that was really interesting. So I decided to do a systematic review and meta-analysis that explored non-pharmacological treatments for auditory verbal hallucinations in patients with schizophrenia. So this was interesting because it kind of combined both skills that I'd gotten from the other two projects that I'd done because there was some maths and like spreadsheets and stuff. But I also had to just read through lots of papers and pull out relevant information and that type of thing. So it was a nice balance between the two, I thought. Yeah, on the side here, I've just put pictures of like the math side, and then the other bit is my bibliography where I was like reading the papers and stuff. And I very recently managed to actually publish that work. So if you're interested, you can have a read. But yeah, that was very exciting for me because I've not published anything yet. So yeah, that was really cool. Um, moving away from the research side of things, um, I've also been quite involved in the BSMS Psychiatry Society. So um, yeah, I'll just talk a bit about that. So I joined in second year as year two rep, and in that role, I was mostly just like advertising events, seeing how the society was run, um, yeah, it was quite like a good role to be introduced in, I think. So don't be afraid to get involved in societies early on. Take on those roles that you're able to. Because then in third year, what happened was in second year, I will say Psych Soc wasn't very popular. We didn't really do much, and it wasn't really a functioning society. Um, I think we only had a couple of events that year, but then in third year, no one wanted to be president. So then I was like, well, I want to be in Psych Soc, so I guess I'll have to be president then because I asked the previous vice president and they were like, no, I don't want to do it. I was like, okay, fine. Um, so then I became president in third year, and it was still kind of like I was trying my best with the society. But I learned a lot in that third year and was able to apply that in fourth year, where I made like application processes for it, and we got loads of applications to the point where I actually couldn't even take everyone into the society. But yeah, that was kind of scary because I thought the society's kind of failing. But if you're interested in something, just go with it because if you're interested, then likelihood is other people are interested, and someone just needs to, I guess, take that leadership role. And even if you're not successful, like the worst that can happen is that it stays the same. So just go for it. Um, and in fourth year, we ended up having a really functioning society. And we even managed to hold a national conference where we invited speakers from around the UK. And we even had a speaker who was able to speak from a different country and share their experiences over Zoom at the conference. And we had lots of med students who came to it. And it was just a really nice day to kind of share interests about psychiatry and discuss recent research and that type of stuff. So that was, I think, a highlight for me. And we also did lots of like more fun events. You can look at our Instagram if you want. Um, and yeah, it's like a really sociable thing to do. Um, yeah, I'll have a lot of friends from that did the society as well, and it's just really nice, I think, to get involved with this type of stuff if you're interested. Um, yeah, we also do things like movie nights and other more academic stuff. So you can really take societies into whatever direction you want. Um, so I think that's most of what I've done to explore psychiatry and neuroscience. Obviously, on top of that, we have our clinical placements. So I've had two clinical placements in psychiatry, and one clinical placement in like neurology as well, which you'll just have at medical school regardless. So, what's next for me? I'm working on the publication process for the papers with the Cedar Lab. So that's the qualitative studies I was talking about in the care homes. Um, so hopefully we'll get those out soon. And then I have a medical elective planned in neuropsychiatry in the Department of Neuropsychiatry in Melbourne, with two of my friends, which is very exciting, who are doing it in different departments, but we're all going to go together, which is really fun. Um, and basically, I'll explain a bit about that in case you don't know. But at most medical schools in the UK, I want to say, there's something called a medical elective, which is usually done in fourth or fifth year, and you get to go abroad for like 4 to 8 weeks, usually, depending on your medical school, and do a placement abroad, which is really cool, I think. Um, so yeah, that's what we're going to be doing in May. And then I'm working on a small project which explores insight in psychiatry versus neurology. Insight is it's the person's ability to identify that they have an illness. So oftentimes people who have mental health problems will struggle to know that they've actually got a mental health problem. And sometimes people with neurological problems will also have the same issue. So we're doing a little research thing on that, which is quite exciting. And I'm still participating in Psychiatry Society. I'm no longer president, as I think I've had enough of that. But I am now the research rep, so I'll just be giving a couple talks and stuff. Um, so final advice, yeah, don't be afraid to explore your interests. Um, just if anything interests you, just find a way to explore that. I think no harm can come from that. So don't be afraid to do that. I've only spoken about a really small area of medicine, and there's actually just so much you can do. I'm sure if you've been joining more of these lecture series is. There's like endless things that you can explore in medicine. Like if you're interested in something like surgery or um, I don't know, something quite niche like ENT, like ear, nose, and throat. I'm sure there's like so much you can explore in those areas, and maybe in like even a different way to the ways that I have. Maybe there's more practical ways or other social ways to kind of get involved as well. But research and societies is kind of just one small way in which you can explore interests and do really fun things whilst you're at medical school or even in other degrees. Um, I'll also emphasize like only go into medicine if you actually want to, as I think this is a very hard course, obviously. But I think I've not enjoyed studying anything as much as medicine, like coming up to like throughout high school and sixth form. I think this is the thing I've enjoyed the most, and that's what has almost made it feel easier, even though I know it's not. Um, so it really that is the only thing that will kind of help you. Um, though you will still have difficult times, obviously, but yeah, I think really do think about if it's something you truly want to do and don't be afraid to like change your mind or even just give it a go. And, there's so much you can explore within it as well and different paths you can take within it. So just make sure it's something that you actually want to do. And I think, as I've touched on throughout this talk, have self-confidence because it's very easy to doubt yourself and think that you don't belong in like certain spaces or people already have so much experience or um it's just you need to do something else and you need to, I don't know, work and stuff. Obviously that might happen, but if there's a will, there's a way. So just have self-confidence. Um and most of the time that will help you, I think. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.